this is not the time for austerity. That's what the Governor General just said in a clip. Well, we didn't show you the clip, but that's part of the speech from the throne today, a message that incited a lot of reaction, especially from Conservative, who said, you know what, we will not support the speech from the throne. Nothing for the energy sector for them, just not enough. Now, of course, their leader, Aaron O'Toole, is at home today. He's been diagnosed positive with COVID-19, as his wife Rebecca has, so our thoughts are with him and his loved ones. But Candice Bergen, the Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party, was on the Hill today, and she joins us now from Ottawa. Candice Bergen, great to have you on the program, and I'm glad you're well. You wasted no time today saying you're opposing this speech from the throne. Why?
Yeah. Well, you know, Evan, it's really disappointing. The Prime Minister prorogued Parliament, shut down committees, because he was going to present Canadians with a plan, a serious plan to address the pandemic and the fallout, the economic fallout and health fallout from it. And that's not at all what we're seeing. It's a lot of the same promises, like 5-year-old promises that these Liberals have been talking about, not delivering on. And so many individuals were ignored. So many people who have lost their jobs, even prior to COVID, were not addressed in this speech from the throne. So it really was, I think, a political opportunity for the Prime Minister, which he seems to try to do often, using pandemics, using difficult times to try to get the upper hand. And it seems like that's what this speech from the throne was, just a distraction from his scandal and the problems he was facing. He had a finance minister who had to quit in scandal, and he wanted to turn the page on that. And that's all that this speech from the throne is.
Are you prepared to have your party vote against the extension of the wage subsidy? That's a $70 billion promise by my sort of off-the-top calculation if it extends to next summer. Are you prepared to vote against extending the wage subsidy next summer? Would you want the government to fall before that's extended? What would happen to people?
Evan, we have been here, and in fact, we wanted to be here even more than the Liberals wanted to be here. We have been in Ottawa every single time that the Liberals needed legislation passed to support Canadians, whether it was the emergency subsidy, whether it was under our encouragement increasing the small business wage subsidy. We've been here to support that legislation. This is a whole bunch of promises that the Liberals have not been delivering on in terms of helping the energy sector and other sectors, agriculture, individuals who are dealing with really severe struggles. So we're not going to be put into that kind of a box. The Prime Minister has said he was consulting with opposition. He didn't do that. He didn't listen to the provinces. He's presented a speech from the throne that he had to know would not get support from Conservatives, and it would look like the Bloc are not supporting either. He had to have known that.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to say what was missing here. So the extent you do support the extending of the wage subsidy, I assume, until next summer. Jagmeet Singh said he wanted an extension of the CERB. The Liberals say they're going to do some kind of new EI program. What was missing here for you? What needed to be in there that maybe Conservatives could have supported?
Well, we initially, our first ask was that there would be substantial addressing of some of the health issues. So even just recently, we've seen the struggles around testing and people getting access to testing, people who can't stand in line for 6, 7, 8 hours to be turned away and then have to go the next day. We wanted to see a real plan with timelines around getting tests reviewed and Health Canada being able to get those to be able to see Canadians access them. Secondly, national unity, Western alienation, a huge problem. Trudeau keeps saying we're going to get through this together, but you know, Evan, our country is more divided than ever. We need a Prime Minister who will say, I want to support, and unify this country, every part of this country.
What does that mean practically?
Nothing that would help that. And then thirdly, sure. Well, practically, you know what would have been great? We've been asking for this for 5 years. If the Prime Minister would have said in this speech from the throne that we respect and value the work and the resources that come out of Alberta, we respect and value the resources that come out of the forestry sector in BC, the agricultural sector, and we're going to utilize that strength in Canada to make Canada even better than it is today. He didn't even mention that. You know, today, Evan, the job numbers came out. biggest job loss in the natural resources sector is what we're seeing come out of that. It was not even mentioned. And then thirdly, we were looking for some sort of fiscal responsibility.
Okay, I'll get to the fiscal in a minute.
Sorry, go
because
ahead.
I think what you're saying, first about national unity is absolutely critical. Nobody in any way, shape, or form should diminish the pain that the resource sector is going through. But they're promising to create 1 million jobs. There's very few details through investments on that. But can you give me a specific, what specifically would your party have wanted them to give or help the resource sector with? Is there something specific?
Well, sure, very much so. If the Prime Minister would have said, we realize that Bill C-69 has caused massive problems to our energy sector, and given all of the circumstances that are going on, we're going to reverse that so that we can see jobs created again in the energy sector, that would have been a very positive thing. That would have been a tangible thing, and it would have shown that he was listening and valuing Western Canadians. But you had asked about what we were looking for specifically, and I did want to follow up on the fiscal side. We wanted to see some responsibility from this government that they recognize that the money that they're spending, that somebody at the end of the day has to pay for it. And I think in his words, in the speech, it said, when the government takes on debt, then individual Canadians don't have to. And that really is indicative of a Prime Minister who thinks that budgets balance themselves. So no, Prime Minister, when the government takes on debt, that is the Canadian people taking on debt. And the fact that the Prime Minister still doesn't realize that and recognize that is very, very worrisome.
Just to be fair, I think, and again, I don't know how he's voicing it, I'm trying to understand what he's saying myself, but one way, when I talk to an economist, they're saying a government can borrow at significantly lower rates and lock in those rates for significantly longer than an individual, which allows them to borrow to start programs instead of having no job program like the wage subsidy, for example. And then Canadians have to borrow at much higher rates. I'm not sure I got that. That's the way it's been interpreted for me. Do you buy that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the problem is we have a government that during good times was not able to build and save during those good times. And then when difficult times are on us, they're not able to manage. And in fact, in the midst of this pandemic, their finance minister has had to resign in the midst of a scandal. So there is not a lot of confidence that somehow they're convoluted, connect the dots. When we go into debt, you don't have to go into debt. Don't worry, the budget will balance itself. Doesn't really give us much comfort.
All right, Candice Bergen, first of all, I always appreciate joining you, but you will vote against it. I just want to correct something I said earlier to Jagmeet Singh. I don't think there's going to be a vote in 48 hours because I think I lost track of the days because as Gary Keller, my pal, just tweeted to me, they're not going to vote on Friday. So thanks to Gary Keller for the shout out there. I always like that. When could there be a vote on the speech from the throne?
Good question, Evan. I've been quite busy over the last couple of hours, so I'm not exactly sure, but I believe it would be early next week would be the first opportunity for a vote on it.
Early next week.
I think winds of change are coming. The wind is blowing, Evan. I'm feeling the winds of change are blowing across Parliament Hill. I don't know if you see it, but I'm feeling it.
Well, I don't know. I don't deal in metaphors right now. I'm just dealing in the speech from the throne, but we'll find out what's metaphor and what's actual money. Candice Bergen, great to have you on the program. Thank you. Does
Thanks,
seem to
Evan.
be a bit of a windstorm on Parliament Hill.